Thank you for tuning in to Zcode Sports Betting Podcast. Let the show begin.
Hi guys, welcome back to Zcode Podcast. We're really excited about today's episode. Together with Jake on this show, we have a surprise, a mysterious man, and a hockey legend. Well, he is too well known in major sports to be named, so for his privacy, let's simply call him Omega. He's a professional athlete, a star goaltender, and an ex-NHL player. That's right, Omega, the legendary NHL ex-goalie, is back at Zcode, stronger than ever with his new live betting systems and insights that he is about to share with you. Omega's main principle is, give a man a fish and you will feed him for a day. Teach him to fish and you will feed him for a lifetime. He is here not just to give you picks, but also to share his insights, his systems, and of course, his motivation to drive you to success. You will be surprised how much value is packed into this long interview. So sit back, relax, and grab your notebook to take some notes. I'm sure you're going to love it. Without further ado, meet the one and only Omega.
First of all, I'd like to thank you so much for taking part in our podcast. It's been a very long time. I believe your last podcast was about 4 years ago, and that was back with Scott. I was just wondering how much your betting tactics have changed since then.
Thanks for asking, Jake. Betting has changed radically since then. A lot of the systems that I was using and utilizing back then have evolved, just obviously as the game and technology has evolved. I used to do a lot of live play wagering where I'd be looking to select the next team to score. And then I noticed when teams were getting power plays, I would cancel out my bet because one of the books I use is Bet365, so you're able to cash out. And then all of a sudden I started taking a look at, well, jeepers, so a lot of the times I'm cashing out, the teams that are on the power play are scoring. I should look into this. And then I started a power play system just kind of based on some of my live play observations. So the systems that have evolved for me, the most profitable bankroll building systems are the empty net play and the overtime system. The empty net play with Patrick Waugh, when he was coaching the Colorado Avalanche, changed the game and changed the way coaches now take a look at pulling a goalie and trying to get a tying goal when they're behind. I used to make plays back 4 or 5 years ago when the team was trailing by one and the coach would pull a goalie. The systems that coaches were utilizing back then was they would always wait till 1 minute left in the game and they'd pull the goalie, and you had a chance to try to go for the empty net play. But with only 1 minute remaining, the success rate of the empty net plays back then was less than 50%, because just a minute of time is not a lot of time. With Patrick Waugh, when he started pulling the goalie when they were down by 2 and pulling it as early as 3 minutes remaining, that changed the game. And if you give an NHL team 2.5 to 3 minutes to try to score an empty net, there's a high probability of success. And the great thing is that the odds are always fantastic. The odds are usually in the neighborhood of anywhere from 190 to upwards of 250 and 260 if a dog is the one who's getting the empty net goal. That's my favorite bankroll system. There's a couple of different ways to play that, Jake. The safest way is you play a total. So let's just say we're going into the third period and the score is 4-2. So there's going to be an empty net play coming up. You have to make that play on Bet365 before 5 minutes left in the period. After 5 minutes, if you're playing a total, you can actually probably go down to about 4.5 minutes. So let's just say the game is 4-2, and now what you're going to play is over 6.5. So the odds that you're going to get for that play, because it's a little bit more conservative, you're probably going to get anywhere from 160 to maybe 174. So those odds are still okay for a high success play. Now you've got two options. You don't care if the team that's pulled the goalie scores or if the team that is up by 2, if they score. It doesn't matter. You're just going for the over total. That's the safest way to play. Another more conservative approach is you're playing the two goal down by 2 goals. The team pulls the goalie, and you can play a team total. So let's just say the team that is looking to score on the empty net, if they haven't scored in the third period, then you'd play them over 0.5 for the third period. If they've scored a goal in the third period, then you'd play them over 1. If they scored 2 goals in the third period, you play them over 2.5, etc. You have to make that play before 5 minutes. The odds you're going to get on that, depending on the team, if it's a heavy favorite or a dog, you're usually going to get anywhere from 175 to about 190. So still not bad. But
for sure.
My favorite way to play it is the more aggressive odds is you just play the team to score the next goal. So the odds you're going to get, you can make that play all the way down to the 4-minute mark. You have to be quick. Make sure I usually like to jump on that play about 4.5 minutes because it takes about anywhere from 5 to 7 seconds for the bet to process. So the odds that you're going to get consistently on those are over 2. And if you have a dog that's winning by 2, you can be getting nice juice odds of anywhere from 250, and I've had it up to as high as 280 where I've got for an empty net goal. Now, those obviously they don't win all the time, but through my success over the last 2 years, I'd say, and I think you guys can tell by the amount of times I post on the wall, the empty net play wins, I'm winning usually over 80%. And it has really spoiled me because to have a success rate of over 80% on anything with odds of 2 and over, that builds your bankroll pretty quick. That's become my favorite live investing profile.
That's absolutely fantastic. An 80% win rate is phenomenal, and not many people can even brag about that. I was just wondering, in terms of obviously the win rate is 80%, have you ever considered doing a progression system for that, or you just like to flat betting? And
in all honesty, Jake, I just flat bet it because to me I play so many live plays throughout the course of a game or throughout the NHL night. I don't care. I don't care if I don't hit one because I'll have an overtime play coming up or I'll have a power play system coming up. So it's really easy for me to just recoup if I've suffered a delay. But if you are just strictly, I know some of the folks on Zcode will be limited because their books don't offer these type of things. If you are playing an empty net system and that's all that you're focusing on, then yeah, you can easily just do some sort of a grid system or some sort of progression system.
All right. So obviously you have your fair share of being a goalkeeper in the NHL back in the days. I've read somewhere that recently the NHL has been sort of changing the way goalkeepers have their own gear. It's been getting smaller and smaller, and then that has an impact in a sense on the amount of goals being scored in matches. Is that somewhat true, or what's your input on that?
I think it definitely has a little bit of it to it, Jake. I mean, the way the game is being played, teams are much more offensive focused. I mean, I'm not a big guy who studies all these Corsi metrics, etc. But if you take a look at in the NHL, there's a handful of coaches that when a team is down by 3 goals, they'll be pulling the goalie even with 5 minutes left in a period. That when you have things like that going on in the game, that definitely makes the totals go up. But for sure, the size of the goaltenders, gear has been reduced this year, and that I would say I could say it's probably been easily to be attributable to an extra goal a game. And the style, a lot of the style, going back 4 or 5 years ago. They used to call it the dead puck era, where teams would be playing a lot of neutral zone traps. And what that means is that when the teams are trying to break out, the neutral zone between the 2 blue lines and center ice was so clogged that opposition teams would have a hard time getting the puck into the offensive zone. Today, the speed of the game, and there isn't such a focus on these type of trapping systems, which has really opened up the game, and it allows the players more freewheeling offensive style of play, which has also contributed to the goals. And in all honesty, the game itself, if you take a look at a lot of the players are younger and they're faster. And the speed of the game, I think, has also opened up things where that's why we're seeing a lot higher goal totals per game as well.
Right. So obviously we're talking about the whole of NHL. I'm not sure if you do any other leagues aside from that in the North America, but as far as I remember, you mentioned that you don't actually deal with any Russian matches. Could you sort of elaborate on what's the difference between the Russian leagues and the NHL in terms of like how predictable they are in terms of goals and your tactics that you utilize?
Sure. One more, before I answer that question, Jake, one more system that I'll share on the NHL side of things is our overtime system. And then I'll also answer that how that relates to the other leagues in terms of Russia, etc. So another steady bankroll system that is really easy to play is when a game goes into overtime. Now, you got to understand, in the NHL, they came up and they designed 3-on-3 hockey for the overtime because the NHL prefers to have the game settled in overtime and not go to a shootout. So there's a high probability of success that you give really talented offensive players all that room on the ice that they're going to settle the game in overtime. So the books have adjusted the odds. When I first started playing this overtime system, at the beginning of an overtime period, the game to not go into a shootout, the odds used to be 160 right off the start. Now, as the time ticks by, I used to wait 35 seconds, 40 seconds, and I'd be getting odds anywhere from 180 to 190, and then I'd make the play that the game wouldn't go into a shootout. Now the books have adjusted because they've seen how many games get settled. So on Bet365, which is my primary book for these live plays, the pregame odds now when the game goes into an overtime to not go into a shootout is usually 140. So I'm not interested in playing anything that low. So you have to wait to let the odds build. Now, since I've shared the overtime system on Zcode, I've noticed that Bet365 is waiting longer for me to get the desired 170 to 180 odds. It used to be by the time 1 minute expired, so that there was 4 minutes left in overtime, you used to get 180 odds at that 4 minute mark. Now I'm noticing it going all the way down to about 3.5 minutes. So the algorithms have already made a 30-second adjustment. I don't know if that's because of the frequency of that type of play being played on Bet365, or they're just noticing a high win rate, but they've made an adjustment. Even still, going down to 3.5 minutes left to get my 180 odds, it's still a very, very profitable play. So you got to wait to let the odds build. I recommend taking 170 as soon as you see it, and that'll happen about the 3.5 minute mark, and you just make a play that the game won't go into a shootout, and that's a high success win rate on that particular play. Now, talking about the other leagues, I play the overtime system and the empty net system. I play that in the NHL. I play that in the American Hockey League, and I played it in the German Hockey League. There's a few other European leagues that I'm monitoring that they mimic more what the NHL coaches do, where they pull the goalies with around 2.5 minutes left. But I've warned the folks we were talking about Russian hockey. The KHL and the Russian leagues are so conservative when it comes to pulling a goalie. A lot of the times, if a team is down by 2 goals, they won't even pull a goalie. So I've learned the hard way that you don't play those leagues on the empty net strategy. It's a different mentality. It's much more conservative. It's much more defensive. If the teams are up by 1 lead, they play a very, very stifling defensive brand of hockey, and they basically try to ride the 1-goal lead to the end of the game. They're not interested in getting the empty net goals. The German hockey leagues are fantastic. They mimic a lot of what the NHL do, and they are one of my favorite European leagues to play the empty net strategy.
Okay, so there's also one more system that you've mentioned to me before, and that's the NHL shutdown strategy. Could you elaborate to the listeners what that strat is about?
Yes, that's kind of the opposite of taking the empty net play. So what I've noticed, there's a lot of teams that now, and you'll notice that now getting more and more into, for example, the last 20 games of this NHL season when teams are battling for playoff spots, and also when it goes into playoffs. If a team has a 1-goal lead, so let's just say we'll just pick Washington and New York because they just finished playing. Washington is leading New York by 3-2, and there's 10 minutes left into the third period. In the last quarter of a season and getting into playoffs, teams will play a real strong defensive brand of hockey to basically shut the game down and to try to get a win. So what I will do on that situation is basically you take a look at the books, and with the last 10 minutes, they will say, let's just say the score is 3-2. The book will basically give you a total of under 6.5 or over 6.5, and I will play the under. Basically knowing that the team is going to shut down, and it still gives you the opportunity if they're winning by 3-2 and the total is over 6.5 or under 6.5, you can take the under. And what happens is if the team pulls a goalie and the team that's leading scores an empty net goal, you still fall into that total of the under and you win your bet. That's a play that I usually like to incorporate into my live play systems when it comes into the last quarter of a season or going into the playoffs. Teams are much more conservative, especially going into the playoffs.
All right. We're getting through it.
One of the more profitable, it's a real profitable system, is the power play system. The power play system that I play, it's a real tough one to explain just by writing on the forum. Power play systems are, if you take a look at NHL.com or you just Google teams that have the best power play percentages, you can get many great sites that give you information, and you take a look and you can see all the teams that have the best power plays. Now, what I like to do is I like to play teams that have minimum above 20% power play percentage. So that means when they get a power play, they score at least 20% of the time. Teams in the NHL, when they are on a power play and have power play success, are very, very streaky. Even some of the best teams will go, on runs where they're 0-4-15, 0-4-17 power play attempts. You want to avoid them when they're in the slump. But when they are hot, that's when you want to take a look at playing them, because you can make some great money, especially jumping on teams playing power plays in the second period and third period of hockey games. Some of the more profitable teams in my power play system are Tampa, Florida, Boston, Colorado, Winnipeg, Calgary, San Jose, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Washington, Toronto. Even though they're a crappy team, I've had great success with Ottawa this year on the power play system. Philadelphia has been a pretty hot team as of late. The teams that you want to avoid at all costs, I don't care how many opportunities they get, I will not play. One of the so-called better teams in the league, Nashville, they got a pathetic power play percentage, and I don't think they're going to do anything this year in the Stanley Cup. You can be a great hockey club, but when your special team percentages are brutal, you're not going anywhere. I will not touch Columbus. I will not touch Nashville. I will not touch Los Angeles. I will not touch Montreal. I will not touch Anaheim. And the one that's really funny to me is Dallas. They got a bunch of offensive snipers on their team, but another team I won't touch. So if you're experimenting with the power play percentages, do not touch those teams. They will just cost you a lot of money. Now,
right, so stay away, basically.
Stay away. The power play percentage, I like to take a look at pregame scouting reports is I'll take a look at the matchups, and I take a look at the team's power play percentage and the opponent's penalty kill percentage. If you can see a discrepancy of anywhere from 7 to 10% difference between the power play and the penalty kill percentage, you got a nice edge there. And then also if the team is riding a hot streak where they're scoring at least one power play goal per game, basically you're just running a progression throughout the game that they're going to get a power play. So I use Bet365. Now, my starting stake for these type of plays is always $850. So let's just say the score is 0-0. It's in the second period. Washington gets a power play. I'm going to play them to score the first goal. If they don't score on the power play, Bet365 allows me to cash out. So I cash out. But you're going to get hit with some juice. So on my $850 play, when I cash out, I'm usually getting about $680 to $690 back. So it's basically costing me almost $200 to make that play. Then you just run your progression throughout the game. If you don't hit a power play, you're playing a team. If they've had 2, 3, 4 chances and you're not hitting it, you can suffer some losses. But I've been doing this long enough that I find throughout the course of the night when I'm tracking a team for my power play, I hit at a very high rate. Going into the third period is my favorite period to play the power play system because the odds that you get from Bet365 are real juicy, usually anywhere from 220 to 260 to pick up a power play goal in the third period. So it doesn't matter if I've suffered a few losses throughout the course of one game, 2 games. It takes me one power play hit throughout the course of the night, and I'm in some real good profit zone.
There was an observation which I made recently in regards to the third period, especially for matches in KHL. You're usually gonna have let's just say an over of 4.5 goals in the whole match, and let's just say going into the third period, you're gonna have a score of 1-1. And the odds are going to be still very relatively low for an over of 4.5, expecting, at least those additional 3 goals in the last period. It seems like the last period is the one with the most goals in general. Is that somewhat true, or?
You know what? I off the top of my head, I can't answer that, Jake, in the sense of I have a friend, a sports investing friend, who did a study for me on that, and actually, I just can't remember it. It doesn't come to me off the top of my head. Where he took a look at in the NHL the amount of goals that were scored in the first period, second period, third period, and found which periods were the most had the higher score percentage. I'm not 100% certain, Jake, but in his data that he shared with me, I think he found that the second period was the one that was the highest.
Oh wow. Yeah, that was just a personal question because it's a personal observation. I don't know how true it was, but I figured I would ask you because you would know.
Well, I mean,
you have all the stats in the world, so.
Yeah, to me, logically, just based on my experience, because of how I'm wired to play the empty net plays, I feel like, and this is more anecdotal, is I feel that my experience has been this year that, yes, I've probably witnessed more goals being scored in the third period, but I don't have that empirically for you.
So that's just your natural instinct.
Yeah, because I'm so wired to be looking for the empty net plays, right? So all my wins seem to happen a lot in the third period on empty net plays, so it feels like there's a lot of goals being scored.
If you don't mind, we're going to move away from NHL for a bit. But obviously you're a phenomenal statistician. You have so many different strategies for betting, and I want to talk to you about one specific strat, which is the Australian League. You've mentioned it a couple of times recently, and we're moving on to soccer right now. This is a very interesting one because obviously soccer is a very popular one, and there's a lot of goals in A-League. So if you could run us through the whole system of how you do it, what you're looking for.
Absolutely. I love Australian Australian soccer, not even A-League, but just if you take a look at all the leagues, Australian women's leagues, the junior leagues, even just I see on Bet365 when it shows up all the schedules, Australian exhibition soccer, it just seems like the brand of football that the Aussies play is very offensive. They love to score goals, and I love that. And I just noticed it, like looking at my live plays and watching. Jake, I think I've been just given a bit of a God-given gift. I've been watching, and we talk about this, the study of outliers, putting in 10,000 hours into something. I've been spending so much time watching games and sports on Bet365, on different sports books, and Bet365 in particular, because of all their live play modeling. I think the way my mind is wired, I've been able to spot patterns. And one of them was just watching all these soccer games in Australia, going, holy smokes, look at all the goals these guys scored. And then started watching, and really what triggered me, I was just watching the A-Leagues, and I was going, man, these guys score all the time before 40 minutes. And I'm like, okay, started watching. I'm like, this happens all the bloody time. I got to start playing this. So then I started playing, okay, over 0.5. I let the odds build. So you take a look at goal before 40 minutes, and I let the odds build to get to my desired minimum 180. And once they get to 180, I make a play. It's as simple as that, just on over 0.5. I also noticed that if the goal was scored really, really quick, that I'd be like, okay, well, I'll play over 1.5 before 40 minutes. Or wait, if the match looks like, I'm watching the live statistics between shots on goal and shots off target, etc. If the match looks like it's slowed down, my desired outcome is to try to get, over 0.5 or over 1.5 in a full 40 in the first half. But if I take a look at, based on what I'm noticing on the action going in the match, that if it looks like they're going back and forth really aggressively, then I'll play the, goal to happen over 0.5 or over 1.5 before the 40-minute mark. That's the first half play. If by rare chance that it doesn't happen, I can only count on probably one hand this season that I haven't gotten the first half goal. Then what the play is in the second half, I take a look and I let it build to where I get the 180 to score a goal before 70 minutes. I will get the B bet in where it's over 70 minutes. I've got other plays like last night, for example, I picked up a win in the Aussie A-League before 40 minutes. And watching the team, it was a first place club. They were the visitor. They were getting shut out in the first half. They were getting some opportunities. I knew that somewhere in the course of the game that they were going to score. So I let the odds build in the second half for over 1.5. Once I got to 180, I made my play. Sure enough, they scored. So the Aussie leagues these are the things that you just need to kind of be aware of, and you got to watch. So like I'm sharing the leagues. There's a bunch of guys in the forum who are fantastic at bringing awareness to other leagues. Colombia is one of my favorite leagues for goals. MLS is another one of my favorite leagues for goal. The England Premier League, another one of my favorite leagues. Turkey has become one of my, I'm using basically my Aussie A-League strategies in Turkey and having the same type of success. You want to stick with leagues that produce goals. And this isn't a criticism, but there's a lot of plays, and this is just my encouragement to folks to learn and know, even when experts are sharing their information with you, monitor it. There's a lot of times that guys will share a play on the wall that I won't play just based on my knowledge, that even though I think that, I respect them, I think they have great win rates, they'll make a play on a team that I know I don't like in terms of the style of play, or that I think there's a low probability of success. So I don't make the play. You take all the information that I'm given, that other experts are sharing, and I really encourage people to just paper bet it. I always like to, paper betting is good, but I always like to make sure, even if you're paper betting, throw $1 at it. Like, just, there's something different about having money involved when you're making a wager. It's a psychological thing that I think people need to get comfortable with. So even if you're learning a new system, throw $1 at it just to kind of make sure you feel like you're getting some traction and you understand what's going on. And I think you feel more vested. But take that system that the expert is sharing with you, and you don't have to make every single play if it doesn't feel right to you. If in your own experience that you think that a play is just based on previous knowledge, previous experience, that you don't play, you don't have to play every play that comes on the wall. There's sometimes I think for new people that come on to Zcode, I think there's just so much overwhelming picks and data and knowledge coming at them that I've really encouraged them to take a step back. I mean, there's some days, especially on Saturday, when there's tons of soccer games going on. I mean, there's a lot of great experts who are posting multiple plays going on, and you're just watching all these bets going on. There's no way for you to, as a newbie, to jump on and follow every single one.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest psychological thing that happens is people start to see, oh, winner here, winner here, winner here, winner here. And then they're getting into the fear of missing out mentality. And they'll all of a sudden start trying to play every play that comes on. And that's when they get themselves into trouble. You really
agree with that.
You really got to start slow. Follow one or two guys, follow one or two systems, try to adapt it for you. Get really comfortable. Like for me, when I was starting to learn soccer, like the funny thing, Jake, like, I mean, I'm a hockey guy, so I make my bread and butter money playing hockey. I hated soccer. Absolutely hated it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, hey, this league makes a lot of goals. I like this league. Hey, this league makes a lot of goals. I like this league. So I started to get comfortable with style of play, offensive attacking teams, playing leagues that score a lot of goals. And then all of a sudden I started to develop my live play systems that were mimicking my success with what I was having with NHL. And then I started to really like soccer. And then I would just basically take what I've been learning from certain leagues, and then I'd start to, branch out and incorporate other leagues into my live play arsenal for soccer picks. There's still certain leagues that I won't touch. As much as talented as the soccer players are, I can't stand playing Brazil. I can't stand playing Brazilian leagues because I've lost way too much money in those leagues. Not enough experience. The style of play wasn't conducive. I'm sure there's experts on the wall that would laugh at me and say they're having great success. But for me personally, Brazil is a no-fly zone. I don't care for Brazilian soccer.
I absolutely agree with you when it comes to following the right systems and getting a feel for things in Zcode as well, because it is a lot of data, it is a lot of experts, and you just sort of have to get used to it before, obviously, learn to walk first before you decide to run. And some people just go straight to running, and that's when disasters happen and bankrolls get destroyed, and we don't want that. And
nope.
You've seen it all. I mean, you've been around for over 6 years in Zcode. Obviously things have changed a lot recently, especially in the past year. I was just wondering what sort of experts or systems you would recommend for newbies.
For newbies, there's a couple that are like really easy to follow and to understand. Jake, you're a fantastic tennis expert. If I was a newbie, I would take a look at following Dan's TSS tennis system, just because it's really easy. It's very simple. There isn't a whole lot of games, it's very limited in terms of how you can succeed or fail. So there's a lot of less downside. If I take a look at Brendan's UFC strategy. That's another one that's very easy to follow, very self-explanatory, and has a lot of success. I would take a look at myself in terms of the overtime system, the empty net system. Very simple, it's not complicated. It's very easy to follow with good odds and high success rate. There's guys on there who are doing great things. With Cliff and Scotty and Old School, with what they're doing on their totals on quarters on basketball. There's three sports right there between tennis, basketball, hockey, that are systems that you can really easily kind of immerse and get your toe in the water in terms of sports investing and live betting, that aren't very complicated and shouldn't break your bank while you're trying to learn to get good. MLB is coming up. I know that I believe. I apologize if I don't know who started the system, but I know that Cliff and Scott and I think Brendan do a lot of stuff in the aspect about to score a run in the innings 2, 3, 5. There's some systems that if I was taking a look at from a person getting into MLB, that I think are pretty easy to follow and that they should have some pretty good success with. For myself, I've always hated baseball. The reason why I've hated baseball is it takes the way the guys are playing it with getting their wins in innings 2, 3, 5, etc. That to me is something that's much more attractive to my makeup. I can't stand how long a baseball game takes to play, and it's probably because when I first dabbled into baseball, I can't tell you how many times I had games where I was playing on a money line play and these guys were going into 15, 16, 17 innings. I'm just, come on, get the damn game over with. It just takes too bloody long. My mind is more wired to be like a day trader. When you make an empty net play, that you're going to win or lose within 2-3 minutes. And, I can't stand having something go 17, 18 innings to figure out, am I going to win or lose yet?
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned these different sports. Obviously, you did say you hate MLB, but you do make money from it. And this is something that I would like to drill into people's heads because, there is a lot of different systems out there, but people tend to put themselves in one single box. And, they come into Zcode and they say, I like football, and they're only going to bet on football. And, you sort of segregate yourself from all the money-making opportunities that you have there. It's not about liking the sport, it's about making money from it. And that's what I believe the mentality needs to change a little bit. What's your take on this?
Oh, Jake, wholeheartedly. This is not a hobby. This is a business. To me, this has become a business. When I played hockey, the amount of money that guys were making, the big money contracts weren't around. I mean, I signed my NHL contract, and when I was playing the NHL, I'd make $180,000 a year. That was big money. Back we're talking. I'm going to age myself here. I mean, but we're talking 25 plus years ago. There wasn't a lot of guys making the $1 million. Now the guys it's ridiculous. Like the average guy in American Hockey League team now will make $100,000 at least. The average guy on the NHL roster who usually sits out, he's making at least $600,000 a year. Back when I was playing, if you were in the minors, you were making maybe you were making 45 to 60 grand. That's what the guys were making in the minors. So, I make. I don't really want to make it sound like I'm bragging or anything, but over the course of the last 5 years, in terms of how my live play strategies have allowed me to make a substantial income. I mean, I withdraw from my books usually on average $25-30K a month.
Wow.
Now that's me being, kind of conservative, trying to stay under the radar. And I mean, we can talk about some of these things that I see questions on the forum. People talking about, well, how do you make withdrawals, and how do you stay under the radar from the books and all that sort of thing. I vary my withdrawal amounts from the books, so it's not the same amount every month. I still keep a pretty good amount of money in my books. So, when I'm making a withdrawal, it's not like I'm taking out 50%, 75% of my bankroll. It's, just a percentage of the bankroll. And every once in a while, what I also do to kind of confuse the guys is, I have a successful business as well. And as revenue comes in, I will often take $1,000 here, $1,000 there, and just deposit it into my sports books for shits and giggles, just so that they look like I'm putting money in, so they don't constantly see that I'm taking money out. So these are, some different things that I've done. But to that point about learning and varying sports, there's no way I would be able to make the kind of money that I'm making sports investing now. I know that there's guys that are on Zcode that, probably doing bigger amounts of money than me and have way more spread out. And, I see some of the wagers that are being placed on Zcode. For me, my average unit size, I don't like to get too aggressive that's another thing that I try to stay under the radar. Like when the success rate that I have with the empty net plays and the overtime systems, I could be really trying to fleece the books and, throwing $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 wagers. But I think that would get myself red flagged and make them maybe limit me, maybe take a look at what I'm doing. But, me being a guy who's only throwing, $1,000 here, maybe $1,200, $1,500, I think that helps me to stay under the radar as well. So I try to kind of be a little bit strategic that way. But the aspect of getting outside of your comfort zone and trying to get good at other sports, if you want to treat this as a business, you have to take a look at diversifying. You get really, really good at, something that you have a lot of knowledge with. So for me, hockey was a starting point. And then hockey evolved into soccer. Soccer evolved into football. Now I'm incorporating tennis. MLB has always been a part of things. I was laughing at the most bizarre thing I've bet on was ping pong. I never thought I'd be betting on ping pong, but I saw Dan introduce some ping pong system, and I made a couple of plays on it, and we won a few bucks. And I was like, "What the hell am I doing betting on ping pong?" But the one thing that I haven't dabbled yet into, which I see a lot of you guys on, and I'm going to have to take a look at and just get out of my comfort factor, is this whole esports thing. That looks like you guys are starting to have some phenomenal success with, and that'll be, I guess, probably my next evolution into another vertical.
Wow, that would be you would definitely wake up a lot of people, especially the older guys who are sort of less open-minded about it. But it's the industry is changing, and it's fascinating to see how much esports has developed over the past few years. Just today there was a tournament, and there was close to 2 million people watching it, and that wasn't even televised. So we're talking people watching online.
Absolutely. When I'm talking about hearing actors and rap artists and all that, like buying teams and sponsoring teams, and hearing about these guys who are playing video games making $500,000 a month, and like there's something ridiculous going on there. And hey, money is money. If I can increase my bankroll with whatever it's going to be, and get comfortable understanding and knowing, and have the same type of success rates with what I'm doing in other sports, I'd be crazy to ignore it.
I actually have another question for you. I know we're not following the path of the questions which I've written up for you at all, but
No
you know,
worries.
the ideas are just coming into my head, and I'm really curious to see what your perception is on the given topic. And I want to talk to you about emotional side of things, because obviously you must have some sort of emotional connection with NHL. It's your favorite sport. It's your favorite competition, and hockey is your favorite sport, obviously. How do you separate the emotional side of things, which could potentially damage your perception on a given outcome of a match, from the actual, you know, strategy where you actually make money from it, rather than, you know, just make irrational judgments based on your emotional perception?
I'm glad you brought that up, Jake, because that's actually one of the things I did want to touch on is the successful psychology of a sports investor, and actually as an athlete in general. I think the biggest dilemma that I think, or the biggest challenge to us as sports investors, is fear. And if you've had a couple of bad beats or you get some bad luck, you start to allow fear cloud into your judgment. People always want to try to recover. You know, you've lost 2 bets, and okay, now you're down $1,000. And the psychology for me that I had to battle on, and maybe everybody on Zcode is smarter than I am, but when I first started doing this, because of my competitive nature, coming from, you know, being a high-level athlete, I can't stand losing. Absolutely can't stand losing. And I would try to recoup, you know, my whatever I've lost. I would try to recoup it on the next bet. Like, I would just try to get it all back, and that caused me some growing pains early on. And then, you know, like you'll see me post whenever I suffer a loss, I call it a delayed profit. And for me, the delayed profit is a psychological thing, because I've come to know now, after I've been doing this for whatever 7 years or so now, that, you know what, I make money. I make money every month. I pull out a substantial amount of money every month. Why am I getting so frustrated over, you know what, I played an empty net play and the guy hit the goal post and it didn't go in? So what? I've got other opportunities. There's always another game. There's always another opportunity. And you often hear the guys on Zcode talk about it. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a long-term strategy. So we're playing a game, whether it's MLB, whether it's basketball, whether it's hockey, whatever it is, even esports. You are playing games that are being participated in by humans. And you know what? Humans make mistakes all the bloody time. So no matter how great your data is, no matter how comfortable, you know, how confident you feel on a play, if you've been around the block and you've been doing this a long time, you're going to see some crazy stuff. You're going to experience some crazy outcomes. I was just laughing about this the other day on a game that we played between St. Louis and Columbus. I think it was Columbus, or no, it wasn't Columbus. St. Louis was the team. I've never seen this in all my years, where a guy dumps the puck in. St. Louis was on a power play, and the other team dumped the puck in 200 feet. They iced the puck 200 feet to clear the zone. The St. Louis goalie goes out into the bloody corner and somehow loses where the hell he is and misplays the puck. And the opposition team comes in and grabs the puck from him while he's way out of the net and just comes and wraps it around the net. I've never seen, in all the years I've played hockey, I've never seen a screw up that bad.
Wow.
Now, did that make me happy? No. I was actually on a power play, I had a power play investment going on with St. Louis's score, and that cost me $850. Just watching that guy screw up in the corner. Now, I could easily get upset and try to get aggressive, but it's just like, that's the part of things. I mean, in soccer, how many times do you play for a goal to happen in the first half and it doesn't? And then what happens is they start in the second half, and in the 47th minute and they score. I mean, buggers. Why couldn't they score that goal 2 minutes earlier and you win? Like, that's just part of it. You got to know that not every play you make is going to win. It's just part of the game. But the psychology for me is, I understand that I've been around long enough and I'm good enough at what I do that I know it's just a delayed profit. So I don't care if I get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, Jake, you've experienced this obviously with tennis. That's a ridiculous psychological game there that can change on every serve. I don't even know how the hell you follow that. But the psychology behind it is, you got to know that you are going to profit. Just trust your numbers, trust your system, whatever you're doing, whatever you're following, and do not let fear get into you. And it's tough. I've had to battle this, but I think my sports background has helped me quite a bit in that sense of, when you suffer 3 or 4 really bizarre, and kinky outcomes that shouldn't have happened, just like weird things like the goalie. If I have 4 or 5 things that happen in a what I call just a bad mojo night, well, fear could easily start to get into. Now, when you are, I'm sure everybody's experienced this, you get a little gun shy. You all of a sudden, you've made 4 or 5 plays, and now you're trying to get ultra conservative. You want to make sure that the next play you make is going to win and you're going to get your profit back. And you start, what I've noticed in my own experience, I'll be watching a game, maybe it's a soccer match or a hockey thing, and I'm looking for the next goal, and I'm like, oh, I think these guys are going to score. I should put my play in now. Oh, no, there's that little hint that, gee, I've lost 2, 3 plays in a row. I'm hesitating. Boom, they score. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that where I've thought about making a play, or I'm about to make a play, and a little seed of doubt or a little hesitation comes in, a little nugget of fear, and it costs me profit. Fear is the biggest thing to me that we have to eliminate. You can't be scared of making money. You can't be scared of losing money. You just have to trust that what you're doing works, and that can only come from experience. And after 7 years, I understand that, yes, I'm going to suffer some delays, but you know what? My numbers, my systems, they work, and I make money. I withdraw money every month. There's no need to get upset or no need to start distrusting a system. Things always just seem to work out. The numbers, or I guess it's like we're reverting back to a mean. So if I'm constantly winning, if I'm hitting a success rate of 70, 80% on a particular system, and it has a bad stretch, I know that it's going to revert to the mean. Just have to trust and not allow the fear of loss and everything to get into your head psychologically.
Exactly. Believe the system, trust the system. I think that was the psychology throughout Zcode since I joined back in 2013, I think it was.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we've talked about so many, well, I suppose negative things. I was wondering, what was your sort of most memorable moment? And we could steer towards something more positive this time, I suppose, and just mention your biggest win, or perhaps the one that sort of got stuck in your memory the most.
Well, I'll share. This was a real valuable lesson for me. It's going to sound negative, but turned into a huge positive. And the reason why it was so memorable. So this is going back to probably it was my first year of sports investing. Mm-hmm. And I've got the privilege of knowing a friend in Edmonton who, I believe at one point in time, he's probably one of the largest sports investors in the world. Mm-hmm. He was actually running a mutual fund that folks would put money into his fund, and he would manage the money, and basically all those funds were coming in. He was basically had a team of computer scientists that developed algorithms, and they were monitoring sports basically all day long. And every day they would give him, here's the games that he should be investing in. whether it was baseball, basketball, hockey, etc. And he would be investing on average about $200,000 to $300,000 a day. That's a lot.
Wow.
And he was trying to help me out because he knew I was getting into the sports investing side of things. And at that particular time, my bankroll wasn't very big. I just threw $20,000 into Bet365 and said, okay, let's give this thing a whirl. And he gave me a play that he was basically giving me how much I should invest and what I should play. And so the first investment went well, so you got to understand, I'm new. I didn't understand a lot of this, and I'm trusting a guy who has done this for a long time, who's a buddy. So he said, okay, let's make sure we build your bankroll up. So one of my first investments was like $2,500. So out of a $20,000 bankroll, he tells me to invest $2,500 on the New Orleans Pelicans. Mm-hmm. And the game won. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That worked out good. nice little bump. My 2,500 became 5,000. I'm like, oh, this is cool. The next game, I forget what team it was, but it was the same thing. Bet 2,500, and I forget who we bet, but it was a basketball game, and they won. And so then he says the third game. This I feel really good about. So Los Angeles Lakers. This is I'm going big on this one. And he said, I want you to invest $7,500. I'm like, okay. So my bankroll's around $25,000. And now he wants me to bet $7,500. Mm-hmm. The Lakers got slaughtered.
Oh.
Just slaughtered. That loss just ate me. Like, it just ate me. I saw a big piece of my bankroll come down, and it also jarred me because the first two wins just happened so easy. Mm-hmm. And it jarred me that, like, holy smokes, it gave me a dose of this is real. Like, when you see your bankroll go from, I don't know what the percentage is, but to go, down $7,500 on one play, it was pretty significant. And I realized that I did not like losing. I did not like the emotional stress that it gave me. Like, I hate losing to begin with, but let alone when somebody, tells you that this is a lock, and it wasn't even close. Like, the game wasn't even close. The Lakers didn't show up. Like, they got annihilated by like 15 points or something. It was just brutal. But I shared that because that gave me a couple of things that I realized. Okay, number one, I'm never ever going to bet that big a percentage of my bankroll. Number two, I'm never going to bet an amount of money that makes me feel stressful about the outcome, whether I win or lose. I mean, I go into every play expecting to win. I expect it to win. But you know what? If it doesn't, I don't care. I don't care if I lost $800, $1,000, $3,000, whatever that is now. Whatever my wager is, I make sure that I don't care if that disappears or if I suffer the delayed profit. Mm-hmm. That, it sounds like a negative, Jake, but that one experience was so memorable to me that it really gave me a psychological shift in the aspect about, I don't care how experienced or how smart a person seems. We've all gotten these little tips, and they all show up on Zcode every once in a while about the fixed match. The fixed match. This is a guaranteed outcome. Nothing in the world of sports is guaranteed. Nothing.
It's funny. I was just about to say to you that, maybe you should not trust the fixed. Maybe your friend was trying to sell you a fixed match of some sort. Was just trying to turn it into a joke of, I wasn't being serious about it. But yeah, funny you mentioned your mind steered that in that direction immediately. So I was just like, okay.
No, it was. I do believe there's kinky stuff that happens in sports. I mean, I've seen it. We've all seen it. You brought it up in the aspect that we were talking about. Like, to me, soccer is a real easy match to fix, but I think tennis is even easier because, like you said, the guy just misses a serve, double faults, pulls up with an injury, can't continue. I think the money. I don't know how prevalent it is, but I know it's there. Like, there's just so much money in sports investing, and there's just so much corruption between organized crime, between syndicates, and that's, to me, I think one of the reasons why I've always been kind of drawn towards live play, because the live play opportunities, you are kind of responsible for the outcome, in the sense of, I could be playing the next goal on a fixed match that I don't even know about, but I'm just looking for the next goal. I'm just looking for, I don't care who wins or loses. I'm just looking for those type of outcomes.
Exactly, and those outcomes, they tend to come relatively quickly because you're betting on something that's going to happen within the next, let's just say, quarter, 15, 20
Absolutely.
minutes, for example. You're not waiting entire 90 minutes for the match to end so that your wager can win.
Absolutely.
And this is probably the main reason why I love live betting, because you can make quick money very quickly. Obviously lose money very quickly too, but I mean, as you said, we're investors. We're not here to blow our bankrolls on a single play, and we make sure that the next play is going to be a good one. And if it's not, it's not something to be worried about, because we do have that sort of long-term mentality. No,
absolutely. You take a look at there's guys who've been around for quite a while, and there's a lot of great systems. To me, I'm absolutely thankful and just staggered by technology. I mean, I take a look at the other day. I mean, I still work out every day. I still stay in shape quite a bit, and when I get to the gym, I'm usually doing about 45 minutes cardio on the treadmill, and that's one of my profitable times. It's crazy. I'm at a gym, looking at a mobile device in Vancouver, BC, using a sports book in the United Kingdom, betting on a soccer game in the United Arab Emirates, playing another match in Turkey, and making money. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy to me to think about the opportunities that are available to us. And here we are, like, I've seen how my sports investing style and the opportunities available to me have evolved radically over the last 5 years. Where are we going to be in the next 5 years? That's the interesting thing to me. What the heck am I going to be investing in? How am I going to be investing? I take a look at the types of investments change also in the aspect about how the sports books work. Like, I know Bet365, they've changed how I've had to play my empty net systems, because I think I've alerted them to maybe an opportunity that might have been some types of investments that maybe weren't being played very frequently within them. And I used to be able to make that play for the next team to score all the way down to the 3-minute mark. Now it has to be made by the 4-minute mark. That extra minute makes a big difference, a huge difference in terms of what happens. If a penalty happens in that last time period, that could really screw up your play. So I can't tell you how many times I've made a play right at the 4-minute mark, and then all of a sudden in the next 15 seconds, the team that I want to score the empty net goal gets a penalty. That screws my play up. If I had that extra minute, I could have avoided that situation. So, these books, they're very smart. They've got algorithms that monitor, and they make adjustments. So I share my systems here, and I share them because I want the folks on Zcode to have opportunity to succeed like I have. But I know I also share them with a bit of a risk that some of the things I'm sharing with you might actually cost me money, because their algorithms, if all of a sudden a whole bunch of people from Zcode start playing and start having success, I've already seen how things have changed year over year. They could actually change again, but I feel comfortable enough that I'll be able to adapt to that. Another live play system that I was going to share because it's coming up is football. So you got NFL football and CFL football. The CFL football, I've developed a live play strategy there based on the next point scored. And in CFL, they're either going to be a touchdown, a field goal, or what they call other. In the CFL, if a team punts and the ball rolls into the end zone and the team doesn't run it out, they give up they concede a single point. So that falls under the other. It's a little frustrating because you don't have that in the NFL. In the CFL, a lot of times I'm making a play for a team to maybe score on a field goal. The kicker misses a field goal, and the team just doesn't run the ball out the end zone, and they give up a single point. You lose your play because of that stupid little single point. But the odds are so good. The odds, a lot of times I will play in the CFL. It's a very offensive league where teams score touchdowns. Touchdowns are the more frequent form of points being scored. So you can play a progression. The odds to score a touchdown are always at 2. The field goal is usually at 2.30, and the other is usually around 3.50. So you can make a play for the next points to be scored in the CFL game to be a touchdown, and you get nice odds at 2.0. If you lose, you can play a progression. And when you're getting odds at 2 or 2.30, it doesn't take very long to recoup any delays because the odds are so good. The CFL is a lot different league in the aspect of how you can make live play versus NFL on Bet365. So on CFL, let's just say we got open a kickoff. The team kicks the ball. The team who receives the ball, maybe they do a fair catch, or maybe they run it back 5-10 yards and then they get tackled. You have to make your play right there, right on that first possession. With the NFL, the live play opportunities are live, so you can actually follow an NFL team all the way up, all the way back, etc. So just knowing that on the CFL, when you make your play, you have to make it as soon as the team gets possession, and once they start that first down, your betting options will suspend until the possession is either they score, they punt, or whatever until the next turnover. It's a little bit more restrictive in terms of what the offering is on NFL. I love playing NFL, same type of strategy, but with NFL the odds are much lower than what they're giving you on CFL. So a lot of times I will play a team to make the next score. The odds are usually in the neighborhood of 160 to 180. The NFL, if you're playing that, with NFL, a lot of times I like to try to get the next point scored as a field goal instead of a touchdown, because the field goals in the NFL are usually down around the odds of 1.40, 140. Those aren't too attractive. I always try to make sure that I'm finding value in my live play stuff, and I'm trying to hit odds usually in the neighborhood of 180 and up.
Okay. So you've mentioned many systems to us, and I'm really happy that you did. I was just wondering if you could tell us if you're working on something at the moment. You did mention, the OpenNet system that you're sort of expanding to different leagues as well. Is that the next plan for you, or is there any other system that you're working on, maybe for MLB?
With MLB, I call it the Schlub system. Now, the Schlub system is, like I said, I've got a real love-hate relationship with MLB. It stems to my early days where I can't stand MLB, where all of a sudden your team can look like you're in control. You might be up 2-3 runs, and then all of a sudden the relief pitcher comes in. The guy's got one job. come in there and throw an inning, get 3 guys out, and you get out of there with the win. I can't tell you how many times I've lost a money line play in MLB because they bring in what I call the schlub. The schlub comes in and he throws up a bunch of melons, and next thing you know, there's 4 or 5 runs that get cranked out and you lose your play. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stop playing for the money line outcome, and I'm going to take a look at when the schlubs come in, and I'm going to play an over total because I expect this guy to come in and get lit up and give up 1 or 2 runs. So that's kind of my next thing I've been working on. I've been experimenting with it a little bit last year, and I'm going to fine-tune it more this year. But so you can stay tuned for me, probably come up with something called the schlub system. It'll be based on bad relief pitchers.
And it's funny that you mentioned it because based on my perception, these schlubs usually come in at the very, very end of the match. So we're talking last inning. He has one job, just to, finish the game, go home, kiss your wife goodbye, and that's it. They come in and they give up 5-6 runs, and all of a sudden the whole match has turned around. And
absolutely, that's why he's called the schlub. The other thing that I've been monitoring as well is a soccer shootout system, and I'm sure there's a bunch of guys on Zcode will start dissecting this because that's just the way they are. There's a bunch of guys who have access to amazing data. I've found and I've heard that when teams go into the shootout, I've heard that the probability of a win goes to the team who scores first. Now, obviously, this is not 100%. It's not something set in stone. I'm monitoring this with higher profile leagues. And I have found because I don't know when all these matches are, so they just show up on the games that I'm monitoring in my live play. And the games that I have been watching and playing, I have noticed that the teams that have scored first have won a greater percentage. It's not always been, 100%, but I'm going to say that it's probably looking like it's been about, out of the limited data that I've garnered so far, it's probably been about a hit rate of around 70% that the team has scored first has won the shootout. So I just recently made a play on this where I was watching both teams. So both teams missed the first penalty kick, and then the team that did score first, the other team scored the other team scored after that. And then they just kind of went back and forth until finally the team that didn't score first missed their penalty kick, and I won a play. So I am experimenting with that. I don't know how frequent or how many of these matches are going to show up, but I know that there's a lot of cup matches and a lot of things that which actually leads me into one of the other systems before it gets into the shootout. Is in soccer, a lot of these cup matches, when they go into OT, I will play the total for goals scored in the extra time period to go over one, that somebody is going to score a goal in the extra time. The odds that most matches seem to start off at for that are usually about 160. So you usually have to wait about 5 minutes. And then the odds get to 180, and that's when I make a play. I'm always looking for value in my live plays. I always wait for odds to be 180. I'm trying to look for odds of 180 and above. And I find that a lot of the matches get settled in that extra time. Yeah. For the ones that don't, that's why I've been kind of looking at can we find any edge in the shootouts? And that's where I'm experimenting with the shootout system. Okay.
So you did mention it's over 1 goal. So we're talking about a two-way market here.
So it's the opportunity that you'll see on Bet365 is like over 0.5 in the extra time.
Okay, I got you.
So you just need 1 goal to win.
There's so many questions people constantly ask about, can I use this in the US? What bookmaker do I need for live betting? And I just, it seems like all of them are shit, basically, in my opinion. I live in Ireland. I'm based here, and the variety of bookmakers that I have. Sadly, Pinnacle left recently. They left due to some taxation reasons, but I can open an account with Bet365 and Betfair and all these different bookmakers. So
you've lost access to Pinnacle?
Pinnacle left Ireland and UK recently due to tax reasons.
Oh wow!
Because they were giving so much juice that basically the governments have decided to raise taxes by 100% on bookmakers, and because of the amount of juice that Pinnacle were offering, they couldn't stay in business on the islands, so they left.
So, but you have access to Bet365?
Yes, we do. And it's like the unlimited one, unlike the Aussies who have to make a phone call to the operator and place the bets. It's just like you, basically. You can bet live, no limits.
No, that's the books. I've had great experience with Pinnacle, with Bet365. We've only had one bad experience with the book called Sports Interaction, but I got to say, I know Bet365 might not give as great odds as some of the books out there, but and obviously this isn't a plug for a book or anything, but it's just my own personal experience. They've been so upstanding with me, in the sense of there was one time I made a play on a mobile device where I thought I was making a play for $1,000, and it was 10,000 by accident. I realized it right away because I took a look and I saw, the amount of my bankroll change. Like, what the hell is that? And the game was actually going on. It was a KHL hockey game, and I made a play. Forget who it was. I think it was like SKA to win in overtime.
Ooh.
And so I phoned up, got through right away through customer service, and they walked. The gal actually escalated the matter from the telemarketer person that I was talking to a manager, and explained to him what happened. And they didn't have to say we're gonna void that bet. They voided the bet except for the 1,000 what the original intention was, and my play lost. So they were totally honorable, in that sense. And then just recently, I had another experience where I was playing an Aussie A-League game, and because of the time zone difference, like for me, playing the Aussie A-League games are usually around 2 a.m, and I made a play on the first half playing at 1. So once it won, I relaxed, and I'm sitting there in my chair, and I was watching sports highlights on TV, and I fell asleep. But I fell asleep with the game open. And somehow, Jake, I have no idea how the hell I did this, but somehow I made a play that by touching buttons on my phone, I put $5,000 on a play that this team was going to score the next. Like there's only about 3 minutes left in the match.
Oh wow!
That I put $5,000 on this team to score the next goal. I mean, if I won, my payout would have been something like $46,000, but. I saw that and I was like, what I didn't do this. So I phoned up to Bet365 and I tell them what happened. And at first the gal said, sorry, there's nothing you can do. There's been too much time, gone into that market. I said, look, lady, I just woke up. I'm sitting here, I know I didn't make this play. It didn't happen. You can take a look at my history. I don't make plays this late in a match for $5,000. Give me a break. You guys, my history, you know what I do. So it's a lesson in persistence. She originally said there's nothing she could do. Then I said, give me a manager. The manager comes on the phone. I explained to him what happened. And he says, well, okay, let me take a look. So he goes and he goes, yeah, you know what? You're right. I can tell by your history that you don't normally make this type of play. But he said, I can refund you in a bet credit. How about I give you $1,000 back? So instead of losing 5, he's saying, you lose 4. I'm like, guys, look, I've been with you a long time. that's not really cool. I know that I know I got to take some responsibility here. I fell asleep and my fat fingers did this, but I mean, how would you feel if this happened to you? This is not a valid play. I did not knowingly do this. So the guy goes away, leaves me on hold for 10 minutes, and I guess he spoke to another. So they come back and they say, you know what, mister, you are absolutely right. You don't normally do this. We see when the play went in, how quickly you notified us, and we understand that, accidents happen. We can't fully void your bet, but how about we refund your $5,000 in a bet credit? And I'm like, you know what? Wow. That's more than honorable. So, you still, by getting in a bet credit, you know how that works, right? Like, when you use that money, when you make a play, you don't win you just win the profit. It's not the total amount that goes through, but still, like, they could have screwed me and said, hey, tough titty, you lost your $5K, but they gave me a credit and I managed to work through the credit and keep winning.
And especially in Bet365, the credit is actually sort of favorable for you because some bookmakers have ridiculous rollovers of 10,000 times your money. So you're looking at, on top of your $200, you're looking at a 10,000 time rollover. So it's something ridiculous that you will never achieve.
No, absolutely. Like they've been very honorable. I don't understand. I mean, I don't know. I've been doing this for a long time. I don't understand how you see these guys say, I just opened up an account and I'm already limited. They're doing this. Like, I mean, I throw some big money around. I've never had anybody limit me. What about yourself? Have you experienced anything like that?
I have been limited with William Hill, with Ladbrokes, not with Bet365 personally, and I was always pushing for it. But then, what happened to William Hill? Oh, he just said that it's one of the worst bookmakers because they limit people, and I don't think it's generally true. They do have possibly the best customer service. And if you go somewhere else like Marathon Bet, for example, and you make a mistake, they will just look at you and basically laugh. They will laugh in your face and
absolutely,
and start ordering the ladies for the office and then celebrating and getting balloons and everything.
I mean, for a guy like me who pulls out, the amount of money that I do, and I pull out money from Bet365 probably once every 30 to 40 days. I don't know if it's really once a month, but it's usually between every 30 to 45 days I'm pulling out money from Bet365. And they easily could have jammed me that $10,000 or that $5,000, and they've been nothing but honorable.
And my experience with Bet365, it would be pretty much the same. And I think you do get a lot of bonuses from them as well, just as the longer you are with them and the more you bet, they do tend to reward their customers.
Well, every week I find it hilarious. I mean, like just last week, I withdrew $17,000 from them, and here it is. Every Wednesday they send me $100. I think it's hilarious.
No other bookmaker does that, and I can tell you that even I've had accounts at multiple different ones, and I'd say Bet365 are the best for those sort of bonuses.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I won't hold you back because I'm sure your day is quite busy today. So I was just going to move on to the last question and just ask you about what sort of plans do you have for 2019? Are you working on anything specific right now?
For 2019, well, I mean, basically, for me, it's just kind of getting into CFL season and MLB. So I'll be looking at trying to refine my schlub system and rolling football. Actually, to me, it's very exciting because MLS is starting up now. So MLS is one of my favorite soccer leagues. My son loves a lot of the soccer games, and he kind of got me turned on to that league. And MLS is a great league for goals. There's a lot of first half goals, similar to Australia. There's a lot of first half goals, and in the second half, usually, if a game is tied 1-1 or if a team is leading, by a goal, usually in the last 20 minutes, there's a lot of goals that happen. Actually, in the last 10 minutes of MLS matches, there's usually a lot of goals. So it's one of my favorite leagues. So that's a league that I'll be gearing up for. So CFL, MLB, and MLS, and hockey playoffs.
All right. So that's settled. We're going to be seeing you within Zcode, and I'm really excited that we managed to get this podcast done. Thank you so much for your time, Omega, and I'm going to see you around.
Oh, thank you so much, Jake. And like I always like to say to everybody, good mojo. We can all use good mojo on our side.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for letting us do it. And I'm sure we should be able to get it done within the next sort of week.
Oh, no, my pleasure. Just let me.
Thank you.
All the best, my friend.
Thank you for listening to our Zcode Sports Betting Podcast, where insider systems, secrets, and tools are revealed to help you win on sports betting. If you have a comment or question, make sure to visit us at www.zcodesystem.com. Download our free sports prediction tools and join our VIP club to follow winning systems from people who make a living betting sports professionally. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes. See you next time.